That's right, everybody. It's Christmas time. It's that time of the year when you just, you want to do something nice. So here I am. My presence is my presence, if you know what I mean. Just here to hang out with you guys, catch up a little bit. I haven't streamed in a hot second. I've been very busy at work. But I hope that changes a little bit. I kind of want to stream a little bit for fun here and there. Maybe some video game stuff, some drawing stuff, or use it as like a vehicle to do some of the things that I would do if it was on stream. But otherwise, I would probably opt for something like more low key and lazy. Just because I don't have a ton of energy for like every random thing. Holy shit, you're still alive. Yeah, I am. So yeah, it was Christmas. I wanted to watch this European Christmas movie, and it was on my list of things to do today, along with watching some other Christmas movies and trying to be festive. And I thought, why not fit in a little bit of a stream, do like a couple of hours, talk with the people, let y'all know that I'm not dead. And then we could watch that movie together in Discord, which is the plan after this. If you're interested in the movie title to look up information about it, you can do !Dry, or you could do !Dre if that's more your speed. I put that in there as an easier thing to say. That'll probably be what I move to recommend people to, is just do !Dre, because everybody knows Dr. Dre. Yeah, so that'll be fun. I look forward to watching that Christmas movie and chit-chatting with you guys a little bit and figuring out what I've missed. Because my understanding is that this space essentially is kind of floundered and fallen apart in a lot of ways. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of like my vibe of it. Why is this like black and white? Something's funky with this chat. Is chat normally black and white like that? Or does it have something on top of it? I don't know. Oh, that's incredibly distracting. I feel like normally y'all are colored, ain't you? Like you have colored names? How come you guys aren't colored anymore? It's all black and white. That's boring. Maybe a restream changed something about the way that they're displaying everybody in chat. I missed the colorful names. Oh, I think it removed all of the colorful names. I think they're all gray now. Well, that's boring. I see color on my end. Huh. Weird. Maybe my display is set on like a weird setting. No, it shouldn't be. Okay. Well, I mean, if it's color on your end, then it's color on your end. Yes. Hello, everybody. Let's think. I want to try to avoid talking about too much of your guys' drama stuff, because if I say something out of turn, I do not have the time and energy to like fight back or like make commentary or clarify or reach out to people in DMs. So I'm going to try to make it through this entire thing without too much drama. I won't like avoid some of the things that have been happening, because I have been keeping up with them, bits and pieces, yeah, that's actually a good thing to keep in mind for this. Try to keep myself out of trouble. Oh God, this is going to be super shaky. I'm going to pull away from the desk a little bit. Glad to see Booksmarts made it out of that terrible league rut he was in the other night. Oh, I like playing. Hello? I think you can hear me now. Yeah, the microphone has been having problems. She's getting old, okay? Her cable, well, I shouldn't blame her cable. Her outlet is really the outlet. It gets a little worn out, all the teasing back and forth and the stretching and shit. These kind of fat holes, they can't take it, so they they get all fucked up real quick. So I think this microphone's probably done ski soon because it's also happened at work in meetings and stuff. It's getting annoying. Hi, Book. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Kumatan. Just let me know again if the mic goes out because I'll try to pay attention to it. Rip Mike, you can hear me now, right? You should be able to hear me now because I see that the mic goes off. It's good. Okay, wonderful. Let me see. I do have a little notebook that I wrote some things down about streaming in, but I think a lot of them are not things I want to talk about. I kind of want this to be like a quickish stream, and I don't want to get into a big rant. I'll say this. I'll use this platform to my own personal benefit, as I have done in the past. If you play Hell Let Loose, reach out to me because I've been playing a lot of Hell Let Loose lately. Let's see, what other updates can I give you guys? My life has been very boring since I started working. I think more interesting things have probably been happening in this space. I feel like those provide better topics. In case you could see behind me, which I guess like I didn't really think about before I turned on the webcam. I don't think there's anything bad behind me. I'm in a house. That's right. Booksmarts is in his own house. It's been a long journey, but it's finally happened. I'm in my own house. I have a lease, and for that reason, I will not be openly just saying where it is that I'm located at. I don't need to be a part of all that. Yeah, I'm in my own place, so that's good. It's been easier to focus and like stay on top of stuff, but my life is rather boring. It's very domestic. I'm at home a lot, just doing whatever it is that I have to do for work when I'm working. And then afterwards, I don't really have the energy to go out and do stuff. So I kind of just chill at home. And then on the weekends, I'm tired, and there's often a lot of like life things to do. So I find that I'm also, when weekends come, then I have to go and do things that I'm supposed to do. So are you in the US? I will not answer that. $5 from Sam Fisher. Old emailer, Merry Christmas. I do remember you, Sam. I do remember you. And you mentioned that as if you're only an emailer, because I feel like I've seen you in chat or donos before as well. But good to see you. Yeah, how's everybody's Christmas going? What kind of stuff have you guys been up to? I've told you my day's basically been wake up, call the family, say hello to them. I cooked some breakfast this morning. What else? I got some yummy Japanese food. And then I watch movies, and that's basically it. Yeah, I don't know. I should have come prepared with more to talk about. I forgot. Because, like, normally I'm doing a lot of other things, or like I'm consuming a lot of media. So it's very easy to like come up with topics on the fly. I feel like it's difficult given that I'm out of practice, A, and B, just not a lot is going on. Let's see. What kind of stuff in this space can I talk about? Radley doesn't like women anymore. Can you believe? I don't really know what the whole Hello? It's either the cable or the plug. You gotta tickle them cords there, Mr. Smarts. No, what I think it is I lean onto the table. Here, let me make sure I'm all covered up here. So wait. The problem is, oh God, Oh, let's keep that out of frame. I lean into the table and the wire gets stuck here, and then I think I'm pinching it or something. Yeah, let's oh, that was almost a very risky camera move. Holy shit. Oh goodness. I heard pittering. That's not good. I just cleaned my desk too. I was just thinking today, dude, if I stream, my desk is so clean. There's absolutely nothing bad on it. And then I forget about that. Yeah. I have one of those mouse pads. Initially, I got it for the meme, but unironically, I kind of like having like a wrist rest. I had never used one before. I always thought they were annoying. It couldn't have been as bad as what Amaranth was streaming earlier today. What is Amaranth streaming earlier today? Oh, I feel like we just completely moved on from the irrelevant thing, even though I said misinformation. What am I looking up? Amaranth. What did Amaranth do today? Launches full-size body pillow based on herself. I am not really seeing exactly what you would be talking about. 18 plus holiday bikini. Smash or pass viewer picks, gifted subs, hashtag pillow, hashtag S. Okay, interesting. Okay. Glad to see you again, Book. You're a G. I'm happy you think so, Ben. And thank you for the sub, Flamin. People still subbing to me. I love having Book's dulcet tones while I play League. Well, I'm happy those two things go together for you. None of us heard your irrelevant rant. Okay, wonderful. So what's the deal? I feel like something changed in his life. And now he's going to be extra spicy on wording an opinion that he may have had before that event about dating and advice. And his new advice is like, don't be, if you just want sex and whatever, the general advice might not be to be nice and to just be dickish, because being dickish works. I think that's his thing. And it seems like there's another part of it about don't put up with people who have mental illness. If if you don't have that stuff going on, maybe you're in a position where you don't have to tolerate it from other people. And if other people are going to allow their problems to impact or manifest in like toxic behaviors in a relationship, then you as an individual shouldn't feel like you have to put up with that to like, I don't know. There's a bunch of pressures for why you might still want to deal with that. I think they're varied. And I think any one way I would describe it would be bad, but I understand what he's talking about. There's this like invisible social force that I think takes form in a lot of different ways that we can see the influence of in people's decisions about things that they don't hold super strong opinions about. And by super strong opinions, I mean like they've thought it out and arrived at it themselves. I feel like a lot of like the surface level stuff that coats the surface area of most of our like understanding of the world, right? That's going to be thin in most places because we don't understand a lot about a lot of stuff. And few of us are going to spend any time really digging deeper than our surface level opinion on most of the things that we could have an opinion about. And I think part of the force which puts that layer of opinion on top of the world is I've noticed that manifest as like we need to be kind and caring and empathetic to people with mental illnesses or who are having issues with mental health. I think that's generally positive. But I think on an individual by individual basis, maybe that kind of compulsion drives you to a place where you put up with things you maybe individually shouldn't be putting up with. And you individually need the advice not to put up with that. So Rally will put out generally this advice as an indicator to people in those particular situations who need the wake-up call to get out of it. The problem is when you broadcast wide at that, wavelength that everybody can tune into, a lot of people are going to tune into that who don't need that message, and they're going to, fight back against you. That is my like TLDR, I barely watched any of it. That's my idea of what's going on with Radley. Correct me if I'm wrong. One of Radley's chief complaints, from what I understand from Steve, I don't think he likes being called Steve. I don't. Is that Radley is realizing they are not confident around women whatsoever. Huh. You know, there was one part of it that I saw that I thought was interesting. And it's the moment where and the person who was talking with him didn't do a good job of arguing this, or they just, it wasn't one of their main points, which power to him. There was a point where I feel like what was treaded over very quickly is Radley was saying, hey, look, if you're a good person and you were a good person before you made the conscious decision to do awful things to get sex, you're still going to be that good person when you wake up from that comatose state of sexual delusion at the end of your 30s or whenever it is that you choose to flip the switch. And when you flip that switch, you'll be that same person that you were at the beginning. You're ready to go. You have everything that you would need to interact with women. You'll be in a better position to do it in a way that'll build long-term relationships. And then you could just do that. The problem is, I feel like that smooths over a lot of things, a lot of techniques and skills and experience that you would have gotten from trying to take a serious swing at relationships like over and over and over again. They don't need to all be like super serious swings, but by being in a relationship where you don't have this ulterior motive of the sex thing and you're purposely being an asshole, I think that you would build up XP in a lot of different buckets that he's not considering, that by the time you would come out, like, let's imagine two versions of you, one that follows Radley's advice to the T about just fucking around, and another that kind of does go for real relationships, tries to learn about people, tries to improve themselves and improve alongside a partner. I think one of those people will be way better equipped to have those longer term relationships at the end of that period of time than the other. And I think that Radley's fuck around advice and whatever, I think it can taint an otherwise perfectly like cool dude, right? Like doing that and treating women that way over time, I think changes you in ways that he's not accounting for. But we'll set that aside because it's not as important. Even if you stayed exactly the same and you could turn it off like a light switch, it had no other impact on you living as long as you did, treating women that way and thinking that way. Assuming it has no impact on you at the end of it, you could just flick it on and off. You wouldn't have experience that the other version of you would have. So I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts on that. And I don't feel like she focused too much on that lack of experience or that idea that people, as long as they have a good heart and whatever, are generally capable of just like magically figuring out relationships. I think lots of really, really good people struggle with relationship stuff. I think even people that are good at relationship stuff struggle with relationships stuff. So I don't know. I think it's a lot more difficult than it's being made out to be. But that would just be my take. This isn't beef against Radley or anybody else. Like Radley, you know, I've talked with him in private about like dating and stuff like that. So I'm sure he gets some idea of what my opinion is and whatever. Which is why he says practically you can do bad for years, too many if you don't care about that. Too many part is not working well in this sentence, but let me try to read it without it. Which is why he says practically you can do bad for years if you don't care about being a good person. Oh yeah, he constantly has that he just reminded me. I kind of smoothed over it in my brain. He repeats this line about like, the only thing stopping you from behaving in a way that would be optimal for you in this case would be a compulsion to be a good person, would be like your own personal sticklerness about doing the right thing, which he's weighed down by. So he, I would imagine, feels encumbered by this duty that he feels in his heart to like be a good dude and whatever. And he's seeing people unencumbered by such a weight, succeeding in the world and doing super well and whatever. So to all of the people in his flock, all of the sheep that he's trying to guide through the world to teach them how to do things right and wrong, I think in this moment of whatever is going on with him, whatever kind of shook his perspective a little bit, he's probably looking at all the sheep in the herd and he's like, yo, y'all should just scatter, because honestly, I'm the shepherd and I'm at the head of this line, and it's tough to live this way, and I wouldn't advise you guys to. Kind of reminds me of the song, I think it's called The General, where it's this kind of like ballad about a general who has a dream about all these kids that'll die in the war that he's a part of. And so in the morning he tells them, you're too young for this. I relieve all of you. I'm going to go fight because I have to. That's my cross to bear. But I'm going to send all of you home. All of you boys, you're too young for this. You got a family. They got families. This whole thing's fucked up. It's got nothing to do with you. Go home. Go live a good life, you know? Yeah, by dispatch. That's kind of the vibe that I get from this rally thing. Kind of feels like he's trying to save other people who are following in his footsteps from suffering more than they need to. But I think people don't need to, I don't know. I don't think it's something that you want to hear. Like, I don't think Radley in his position where he feels encumbered by this duty to do right necessarily would be like positively impacted by people telling him to shed that weight and just do what he would want to do. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting little psychological situation. But you should care about being a good person. Yeah, you definitely should. I think Radley thinks that you should as well. Yeah, and again, this is all off of like very little info about the thing. But I saw that and that was sort of interesting. You know what's not been interesting? A lot of this Mr. Girl stuff. What's going on with that? When are we getting him back in the orbit? Where do we get Mr. Girl back in the orbit? I'm sure a lot of you guys miss him, right? Let's see what else is going on. I'm just gonna go to Steven's YouTube channel and look. Let's see. Because I've kept up with some things. It feels like we've been in a kind of boring spot. Oh, that was something I actually was very tempted to do a rhetorical review of. He had a really bad conversation with counterpoints that was like surprisingly bad. And for the Taliban, just understand, like, I would say my snap judgment would be a lot of that probably falls on Connor. Like, it felt like we got to a lot of places where I feel like Connor would normally like realize, oh, I'm being asked for evidence about this stuff and like I've not really read into it. I just like see the coverage of it and agree with the general sentiment or like the phenomena in the world that all of the articles seem to point at, and really the structure of that hand and the rigidity of the finger pointing device that's being used to signal towards the larger societal problem. It doesn't seem like Connor really cares about this. I think he does in other cases. He would care about what the finger is that's pointing at the thing, but he seems so enamored with the existence of the thing and some people's denial of the thing that he also thinks that that denial of the phenomenon in the world existing, like, if you're denying the finger, you're denying the thing it's pointing at. And I think that it's kind of part of what's missing in that conversation. He seems very focused on like Steven's calling out of how good the leaks were means that he's also questioning the underlying thing that's going on. And Steven sort of feeds into that a little bit by, you know, giving any kind of tone in the direction of like, well, you're not presenting the evidence of this thing. This finger is not proving that that thing exists. They're not connected. This isn't doing a good job of like accurately demonstrating where to look to see the problem that you're talking about. Even if the problem you're talking about exists, this is a problem because it's not doing a good job of pointing at something that really exists materially. And that seems to be something intentional through the very design of the pointing instrument, which makes it of the utmost importance, I feel like, that Connor understands that there's a problem with the finger pointing thing, because you get too many of these poorly designed pointers at things that don't exist in real life, and people begin to imagine a monster that doesn't exist. And I'm not saying the censorship thing is that, but like, I don't know, you should be on the lookout for that and trying to self-regulate those like really strong beliefs about the existence of things. 50% of your audience logged out with that monologue, whatever. I just finished getting food in the oven. What did I miss? Apparently you missed a very boring monologue. The whole stream is a monologue, isn't it? I just talking to myself the whole time, so I don't know. Lengthy, clever, but overextended. You know, it's the rustiness. I have not been live in quite some time. I also haven't prepared any notes for the. Literally, all the notes I have is like how to execute on the Discord watch party. I just don't have a lot on what I would want to talk about. Just kind of shooting from the hip here. Let's see here. 2 seconds. What is this? Booksmarts is live. How's work? I'm applying for startup accelerators right now to make an AI company. I've been tracking that. I have been keeping an eye on your AI project and your generation of your little like little swords and stuff. I've seen your posts still. Work is good. It's just it's stressful, and I feel like a lot of that stress is probably something I'm putting on myself. But also I think that the way that startups are designed is kind of stressful, but that's neither here nor there. I've missed the bookie streams. Well, I'm happy to have given you one. Kuma is asking me to ask you how much for an ass stream. Well, you can tell Kuma that they're banned. Congratulations. We still have Booksmarts, even if he is insane and just talking to himself. I meant to compliment you in a lousy way. You're sharp for sure. Okay, yeah. Remote is hard too. Yeah, honestly, I feel like, and now we're going to talk about startups, so get ready for a whole nother monologue. Which again is something I want to be careful about because I don't want to like poop on my work at all. I'll speak in generalities. With startup stuff, yeah, I really wish my job was in person and I got to talk to the people I'm working with, because that's like the most fun part of my job. Like when I can get work done and I'm in like a call with other people and we're working together on like a solution towards something, that to me is like incredibly fulfilling. It feels really good to come at the out at the end of that and you have something done. I think a lot of like working on your own with very minimal guidance on like vague prompts about what to do, which is going to be a lot of figuring stuff out in these tiny companies, is like you're going to have to, you know, bootstrap yourself a little bit, figure stuff out on your own, do some learning on your own time, and yada, yada, yada. You know, that's all dope. Cause you know, that's what I did with streaming and with my jobs before. But I suppose I expected a little bit more guidance in those regards. But yeah, no, yeah, I guess it's just a little bit tiring. I think if we work with other people, a lot of the stress stuff would be manageable. It's stressing on my own that's like sad. I don't like that. And in startups, stuff fails, right? So you'll work on something and then it doesn't end up being useful, or we can't use it or whatever. I'm sure devs, you probably know about that. It's not a startup specific thing. Maybe something that you work on doesn't end up being used or gets implemented in like, you know, an imperfect way or whatever. You know, so there's a lot of that stuff too to think about. I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, that's easier to stomach when it's with other people, I feel like, because you can pat each other on the back and move on. At least that's my psychology. When you slave away on something independently solo and then it fails, it's sad. And it's yeah. So yeah, that's some of my work woes. I could go on all day about work, though. It takes up too much of my brain space. Hey, Blixmers, not a regular viewer at all, but I remember you advertising for writing reviews. Do you still do so? Oh, yeah. If you want like help with your writing and stuff, for sure, just reach out, booksmarts.twitch@gmail.com. And I believe there should be a document. I haven't updated prices, but I'll just keep them where they're at. You should be able to do !work, and it brings up a little Notion document with information about like, what should I have ready in advance? What should I email you with? What does a session look like? How much does it cost? Any and all of that information you could get with !work. But yeah, I'm still happy to do that. I've actually been doing that more for free lately. Like, I think it's on Monday, so tomorrow I have an appointment to look over somebody's their application to college. But yeah, like I would like to do more of that stuff. Like at work, what feels really good is when we work on something like copy related, because it's very easy. Like I've done writing for a while. If it's not perfect, we can change it. I got like 20 other ideas in my head we could just go with. Writing is very easy for me. And sometimes I take for granted where other people are starting because I haven't been tutoring in a while. Remember when we first started out the stream, a huge focus of the stream was on this gap between experts and novices. Very young book smarts, I say very young, it was a few years ago now, younger me, that was doing a lot of tutoring and ghostwriting, that was a very important concept to always keep at the forefront of your brain all the time. And it continued to be so a little bit into streaming, and then you kind of let it go. But I always had to keep in mind my audience doesn't know what I'm talking about. If I'm tutoring, my audience is people that are struggling with the material. So they may understand something the wrong way. Like there's a bunch of landmines I'll have to deal with. So I have to keep in mind, I'm here and I'm going to take for granted understanding a lot of stuff that this person at an unknown level below me is not going to have available to them. So I need to figure out where they are relative to where I am and figure out how we build steps in between those, individualized for that person, their situation. And it would be the same way with graduate writing. You're writing to an audience of people that understand your field and your subject, but they're going to come to the table with different understandings of like the history of whatever it is that you're talking about, or the nuance of the execution of whatever your methodology is, or the kind of historical significance of your results, or where they fit into, you know, a bigger body of work by other people. So yeah, that kind of expert novice thing, it's interesting to see it like come up again with talking to younger people about like applying to college and stuff. Or we had like a new person at work who's like super duper young. They're like an intern. And it reminds me like, oh yeah, we don't all start knowing everything. We have to like learn stuff. And I think over time, probably the older and older you get, I think maybe you lose sight of just how much you benefit from having lived longer and experienced more stuff. About writing, what are some of the authors you look up to? I don't really have any. Like, I don't. No, I don't really have anybody like that. I don't like look up to authors. Most of what I did wasn't books or anything. So like, it wasn't like there were authors to look up to. Like sometimes I'll read something and be really impressed by it for different reasons, but it's never like, oh, this author, that's something I aspire to be or whatever. So I guess I just don't really have that relationship with authors. Normally I notice what they're good at and what they're bad at. And then I like to pick apart what they're good at a little bit more to see if I can learn anything. But that's the extent to my engagement with like how other artists write. And in academia, it's the exact same way. Like I'll notice that like, oh, this person worded this thing that I'm trying to word. Like here's one of the best ones is like, when I try to get a quote for something, I will normally write 2 or 3 of the words of the quote that I'm trying to use that are unique. So if I have a sentence that's like, the voracious predators of the Western Nile are often known for their blah, 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 blah. Vicious predators, that's going to be 2 words that are unlikely to come up again in sequence. So I'll write those down to find the quote later. And so now sometimes I'm looking at a quote and I can't rewrite it in a way that is in my own words, or I do and it sounds worse. And that's always a fun moment, is to figure out, and that's why I told you the thing at the beginning. There are some quotes where like, I know generally what they're trying to say. Like I have the numbers written down. So I'll write down the numbers and then I'll try to explain the logic behind like how those numbers connect with what I'm trying to say. And I'm like struggling and I'm changing the order of these three things that I'm trying to communicate in this one sentence. And now I've made it two sentences and I've tried to put the three things and like two in here and one in here. And I'll do one in here and two in here. Maybe I'll do two and then like half a one and then one is like a quick, like I'm trying to figure out how to communicate this in like an aesthetically pleasing way to me. And then I'll look back at the original quote and it's written exactly perfectly. And I'm like, oh, okay, I couldn't come up with like this perfect, you know, I would say that's a lot of my experience with like appreciating other authors. At least that's like an academic example is sometimes people are really good at putting together ideas, or they avoid constructs that I don't notice are like hurting my writing. Like in my personal writing, and this is something I recently learned at work, so you can learn all the time. Because I'm not in a position of like power, I think I speak in the passive voice a lot. Just maybe, if we could maybe blah, blah, blah. I think just doing X just doesn't add anything to a sentence a lot of the time. A lot of the time, if you say just, it is a people word. It is meant to like communicate something about politeness or about like hesitancy about making a direct request of somebody or exactly saying what you mean to say. Thank you, Nicole. So there's stuff like that. I'm like ranting and rambling about very particular writing things. What do you work as? I don't really want to reveal that. Not that it would help you if I gave you my title, because where I work is at a startup and it kind of feels like you do everything there. Like if we need data stuff, then I'll make data tools and I'll learn how to crunch numbers. If we need you know, a bunch of marketing copy on a bunch of advertisements, I'll write all the copy. If we need a creator's input on like how to, you know, do X and Y and Z, then I'll give my creator's input on doing X and Y and Z. So it just kind of depends on the fires happening at the time, and you kind of just jump on projects assisting with where other people are struggling. Like we have designers at work, for instance, but while designers are good at designing, it does not mean they're good at writing like marketing copy. I wouldn't say I'm good at writing marketing copy, but like I'm a more confident writer and I won't get stuck a lot on my own like other folks would. Like you could lock me in a room to come up with options for how to write something. You could lock somebody else in a room. And I think I'm going to need less time and I'll come up with more options and I'll be less frustrated. So like, if that's a task on a project, I'll happily take it because it'll save everybody else the headache of having to deal with that and revising it over and over and over. So yeah, it's just you jump on whatever it is. Copy is a fancy way of talking about bodies of text that like organizations use. So you might have text that will be in an advertisement, right? Like it'll say, Maybelline are products from France that bring out the richness of your inner. I banged the microphone. You know, you come up with all this, all that baloney. All that written stuff is copy. So you can have copy in different places. You could have copy for a newsletter that gets sent out to people. You could have copy for an advertisement. You could have marketing copy. You could have, yeah. So copy is just text basically. Good to see you. Good to see you too, Kaho. But a moment of reading that touched you or gave you like an emotional experience. Lots of stuff does. Like any good book, I feel like has given me a lot of emotions and stuff. I don't know. We could pick off the bookshelf back there. I'll go grab a selection of books and I'll bring them back to you. How about that? We'll pick 3 books off the bookshelf. I'll talk about what are you looking for? Emotional experience. I'll go to the bookshelf. We'll consult the bookshelf. Oy. Let's see. This one. We'll get this one. Good. I picked 3. I tried to pick maybe 2 that I've talked about before and 1 that I don't think I've ever talked about before. Actually, 2 that I don't think I've ever talked about before. Okay. So number 1, and most of you should be familiar with this, Catcher in the Rye. I remember reading this book, and I think one thing that stuck with me was when the main character gets put in a position where they're going to have sex with a prostitute, or they could have sex with a prostitute, and they don't. And I remember that, like, I read that and I began, and I think this was near the beginning of the book, I instantly understood better what the Holden character was. And like, that was my moment of like, oh, they're still like a kid. So you're meant to be focusing on this kiddishness of them. And like, because before I thought that the book was somebody who's very, very real, who is trying to keep a very strong box around that sense of realness as the outside world and the fakeness of it begins to kind of close in around him. And I felt kind of bad about that. I thought he was dumb, but, you know, and then I kind of realized it's sort of the other way around. He has an innocence and he's built fences, like, I don't know, he's kind of, it goes the other way around. It's not everything else coming and crushing in on him. It's his understanding of the world expanding, and necessarily that vacuum of pressure on the inside with these stupid fucking ideas that don't comport to reality creates this kind of negative pressure against the wall of that. And eventually, kind of like a mantis shrimp, when like it hits, it makes this bubble of like negative pressure that all the water colliding in at once to fill that vacuum is what makes like the power of the bubble that like kills other animals. Because the mantis shrimp punches so fast it cracks you know, a fucking bubble in the water of like a vacuum that once all the water comes back in together, it's like a reverse bomb or whatever. That's kind of like what it was like when I started to realize, oh, this is this kid like realizing that a lot of the shit that he thinks is baloney. And I think the phony one is really him. And I thought it was like clever. So that left kind of an impact on me when I read Catcher in the Rye. Because I think initially I tried to skim it and I like watched stuff about it and I thought I kind of got it, but it was in that moment that like, oh, you were embarrassed by this thing and like now I kind of see you for what you are. Another is this. And I don't care, men's. I don't care what the real reason is. I just want my convenient analogy. Quiet. This was a book that I had to read, I think, as a part of some behavioral science program that I was doing for some person. I found it to be pretty boring. I can't recommend this book to you. I found it very boring. But kind of similar to what happened in Catcher in the Rye, I think it gave me a way better understanding of introverted people. Yeah. Like, I constantly was imagining, I'm not the person that's meant to read this book, but for the person that is meant to read this book, I'm sure it can be very enlightening and encouraging. So that's maybe another one. Like, I saw some things in here that clicked in my brain, the mental model of people who like feel a particular way about social stuff and like, oh, this is what they're thinking in their brain. This is where they're stuck at. That's why they view themselves as being this way. Because personally, after having to read so much psych stuff, at the very beginning, this shit's pushed on you really, really hard. This idea that they're introverts and extroverts. I think that's complete bullshit. I don't think that's really real. I think that's like pseudoscience baloney. In a way that only certain things I feel like in psychology or sociology are. Like, they make sense intuitively to us as humans, you can easily go get lab results that confirm to you that this division of people exists if you're looking for it. And because everybody can kind of relate and believes that it's a real thing, you can talk in terms of that language. You can talk in terms of introverts and extroverts. And for that reason, I don't shit on people that believe in introversion, extroversion, whatever. I'll speak the language with them. I just don't personally believe that's really the way, that's really like a meaningful division in people. And I think a lot of it's kind of self-enforcing. And this book actually helped me to continue to believe that. But the fact is, the kind of like religion, if you put an idea out there into the world on the mechanics of the way that the world works and people latch on to it, and then they kind of absorb that into the story of themselves, it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I felt like that a lot while listening to Susan Cain in this book, because it's a lot of like, you were very convinced that this is the person that you were, and then you said all this stuff about it. But I think there are introverts that don't relate to things that she can accomplish as an introvert in the book. Anywho, it gets deep. There's a bunch of, psych concepts that are like that, where like, I don't really think that's a real thing. I think in 300 years, we'll think that that was a silly stereotype of people that actually wasn't a helpful distinguisher at all. But nevertheless gives me a way to communicate with people who don't feel comfortable engaging socially. Sorry, that was a lot. We're at that stage where I just talk and talk, and I don't really read you guys. I don't know what you're thinking. I also agree most stuff in psychology is made. I don't think that. I didn't say that. Yeah, no, I don't think that. And I think there's helpful things we can learn while calling them the wrong thing. Last one, and I've talked about this one before, so I saved it for last. Tim O'Brien, The Things They Carried. Tim O'Brien is an interesting author. So this is basically a book about whatchamacallit. It's about people in Vietnam, soldiers, American soldiers in Vietnam. And as the title would seem to imply, it focuses on things like the things that they carried. It'll talk about the context of a rucksack, the backpack that you wear in the military and what makes it heavy. It'll talk about what it feels like to heft around, a big weapon or something. But I think beyond that, the awesome thing about this book, this was actually a really impactful book on me when thinking about the artistry of being an author. Because Tim O'Brien, I think, so to take you back, to put a setting, I read this when I was, I believe, a junior in high school. And that was also when I started to do essays. And I remember we watched a bunch of stuff about Tim O'Brien, the author, before we read the book, because our lesson, what the teacher was trying to teach us, is like learning about an author completely changes the way at times that you engage with the material of something, or it can. And this was a cool thing about that English class, is she's constantly trying to teach us to pay attention to a dimension of literature with an example that very much shows that mattered in that case, right? And that was always something I tried to do in tutoring as well. I think you have to have good examples, good analogies, good real life stories to back up the things you're telling people to do. If you're giving somebody a bit of advice and you don't necessarily have like a real life example or like a good way of backing that up, I think it's an awkward place to be in. And she was definitely not in that place. So Tim O'Brien would talk in an interview about how like, you can't really tell people in a raw way about what war is like. You can't. The language for that is in a very like soldier to soldier kind of quiet understanding. And it's not really spoken and understood. It's not vocalized like that. And because it's not, it's tough to find a way in any medium to communicate the different things you want to communicate, because it isn't horror. It's not gross. It's not blood and guts. It's not, all that shit. It's not patriotism. It's not doing this for your country or this and that. It's not
exactly political. It's all these things and it's none of these things, because you need all of those colors to kind of paint the canvas of the event that you experienced. And it's really tough to do that over the written word, because it can be a limiting dimension to tell a story. So what Tim does is he admits not everything in this book is exactly how it happened. Because if I told you exactly how it happened, I'm not communicating what I'm trying to communicate. This book isn't meant to be a recollection of the way that things had happened. That's history. This book isn't meant to be a personal memoir of you know, a date by date thing of what happened to me, because that's also like kind of more of a history thing. Instead, what he tried to do is he tries to capture themes and feelings, and then he tries to figure out what is a story based in reality I could tell from my time in the war that would put you in a place, like I can position you in this three-dimensional space with my writing, where you'll look at just the right angle to feel and see the things that I think are going to be necessary for you to feel what I felt. And I thought he did that at a good point. And it made me think more deeply about, like, what is this chapter trying to tell me? Because sometimes they would be weird. Like, he would talk about, like, he'd be going on and on about how they're marching and they're thinking about this, that, and the other thing. And then they see somebody up in a tree, just like half of a body up in a tree. And I actually think this was also referenced in a movie I had recently watched. I think it was, and it may have been referenced before Tim O'Brien referenced it, of like how surreal it is to just see half of a human just like hanging in a tree. And I think the whole chapter was meant to bring you up to that point. There was some like poignant way that he made it clear that what he was trying to do. Oh, also really, really cool. And I would recommend you guys get physical copies of the book to do exactly this. This is all writing and highlights from when I was in high school, because these are the orange ones. So all throughout this book, if I really wanted to, I could find the exact chapter and like do what I needed to do with it. Because I think in the back of these, I also write about like the chapter and what it was like and stuff. I do. So I try to, or I'll write down something that like was a word that I didn't, or I didn't know, or I didn't have an exact answer to, or words that I wanted to use again later. Like comport, I know what comport means. Curt, I know what curt means. In the context, I didn't. So he uses a sentence, he might give a curt little nod. And I guess I didn't really understand the curt, like what it was exactly trying to communicate. That's what it was. I knew it would be brief, but I didn't understand the emotion. It's rudely brief. Okay. This is cool. This is cool to go through. Oh yeah. And in the back of this one, I have a whole thing about, I don't know, something about this. But yeah, a lot of these chapters are like that. They're weird stories that just end in weird ways, and you kind of have to take from them what you will. I think Atlanta, for a more accessible piece of media that does the exact same thing, if you've ever watched Atlanta, some of the episodes in Atlanta are like that, like the dream sequence episodes. Like you're just kind of taken through a story that was really weird, and then at the end of it, you're just kind of like left there to figure out what exactly the purpose of that whole journey was. Anywho, the next generation could get a great summary from it. Yeah, maybe. You're still alive, you little rat goof. Yeah, I am. People who don't mark up their books have no idea what they're missing out on. Oh, yeah. Although, and the older I get, I think the more I need to work on this. I don't want to call people out about not getting a physical book and marking it up and whatever. I will say, like, nothing could probably convince me that you would get more out of something just listening to it. Like, I don't know. If somebody tells me they read the audiobook of something, it means something very different in my mind to if they showed me the book and they had annotations in it. I just think physically engaging with the medium in some way is like important. Yeah. And it's not to say I don't listen to audiobooks. I do, but I make the choice about like, how quickly do I want to read this? Do I really want to keep the information I got from it? Because if I do, I'll take notes. But my advice to any students and whatever, like in tutoring, I would always have a fun thing where like a lot of kids, and this is again, remember, you have to, when you're tutoring, and maybe in life this is generally helpful, that expert novice divide. I forget there's a stigma, there's a kind of like yuckiness to actually taking a pen and like writing on the book. Like, oh my God, you actually wrote on the book. I don't think a lot of people get over that. I think people generally avoid books so much that like the idea of ever being in a situation where you really do want to write in it and you come up against that wall of like not wanting to write in a book, I just don't think anybody ever gets there. I mean, reading a book alone is kind of crazy in physical form, let alone writing in it. I don't think people really get to that point. So in tutoring, yeah, we would like, I would make sure, of course, that they own the book and whatever. And then I would like scribble on the back page and like draw a picture of them or whatever. And I'd be like, look, it's no longer, you know, I wouldn't say it this way. It's no longer a virgin book, right, anymore. I've marked it up. So now we can mark up the whole book and not feel bad about it, because that was a waste to mark it up. I just drew a picture. You're going to be writing useful things, and future you might like it. So, but yeah, marking up books is definitely helpful. I don't like to mess up my books. I think books are meant for reading and enjoying, and this is kind of like a necessary component for me. For sure, until they come up with a widely usable equivalent of markups for audio content, they kind of do. I think there are a lot of clever ways to do it, because I listen to like productivity podcasts, and those dudes, I think there's a way that you can add a mark in an Audible audiobook, and then you can go and sync those marks with your real book or something like that. I think there's some process for that. I don't use that. I use my own note-taking thing. Marking up your book doesn't ruin it. It gives your book more value. It makes the book more valuable to you. Yeah, that's how I've always looked at it. This like, it's like, if you were to put two identical copies of Catcher in the Rye, one that has all my writing in it from high school and one that doesn't, these two things are not of equal value. And I'll tell you what, the new book, for its lack of writing inside, is not more valuable to me. It's going to be the one with a bunch of writing in it. You know, even I think for my Dune book, I think even in this book, which I generally try to take care of because it's one of the nicer things that I bought in terms of books, but even this, I'm pretty sure I write all over this thing. Let's see if I can find some examples. There's a lot of flipping around I'm doing. Of course, when I go and try to, I don't find anything. Because I know for sure there have been times in this book where it was clear that it did not have a good editor go through it. Because they'll miss like random misprints and typos and things like that in this book, which is disappointing. I wonder if this book was more so meant to be something that people put up like on a shelf and they don't read it. But for me, I definitely have been. Oh, there. Yeah, so like I keep it minimal nowadays. Like I can even put this up in front of the camera. So like I'll do little things like with lines that I like or that stick out to me. I think that's a habit that started with this one. And I showed you guys this before on stream too. How did you like Dune? Favorite part? I think I finished book 2, or I'm about to finish book 2, and I'm on book 3. So I don't know. I want to see what happens post Muad'Dib. I think this is the book where I started doing that in. Just because there are some lines in here that are just really good. Oh man, I got to remember not to do yellow highlighter in the future. Makes it real hard to see what I've highlighted. Yeah, little things here and here. Yeah, like this and stuff. I should reread this. Every time I'm older, I get more out of this book. Anywho, I'm getting very carried away. You listen to CGP Gray's Cortex? Yeah, I do. I like the cleanliness of the original author. If it's proprietary to Audible, that doesn't count, but it's better than nothing, I guess. I want the wide scope shit. I have no idea what we're even talking about there. How do you deal with new words as you read? You look them up immediately, and you make a very good habit out of doing that, because to make a habit out of otherwise makes you a stupider and more ignorant person. I truly believe, unequivocally, you are made to be a more ignorant person by making a habit of skimming over things that you don't understand. Figuring out the definition to a word is going to be one of the quickest things that you could resolve in your life in terms of not understanding. And it is one of the most forgiving. And it is helpful because if you ever come across it again, you can use that word. If you're not willing to do that with words that you don't understand, I would psychoanalyze you to say that you're probably making that decision in other places in your life. It's probably not great. Doesn't looking it up break the flow of reading? The flow of reading was interrupted the moment you didn't understand the word. So yeah, I think most people that I talk to or that I experience in tutoring, they skip over words. Like that's actually one of the things that I try to suss out from people, like younger people, not like you're in high school or whatever. If I discover it when you're in high school, I'll make more fun of you for it. But with younger kids, I will read them things that are above their reading level to kind of see how they're dealing with those words. And I'll usually, and this goes back to the thing of like, if you're going to try to teach somebody something, pick a good lesson that is like foolproof, that they're not going to poke holes in. So I would give them a sentence that there's no way you understood correctly what this sentence is saying. There are no context clues here. You either understood that or you bullshitted. And it's one or the other. So yeah, with words that I don't know and stuff, I look them up. Actually, in Dune, there's been quite a few words like that, I think, that I've had to look up the definitions for because I just didn't know what they were. I think it had to have been early into the book. I know there have been a couple of times that that's happened. But generally speaking, I'll underline the word and then I'll write the definition at the top so that if I read it again and I come back to it, I'll know, oh, I didn't understand that word, you know? Oh, and I mark a lot of things that are incorrect because they stick out to me. So if you look at this underlined word, though I heard Yue's voice, that should be I thought, right? So I pick up on these all throughout the book. I'll find commas that are missing. I'll find words that are misspelled. I'll find obvious typos. I'll find like formatting errors, and then I cannot help but to like mark it, or it'll stick in my brain for a little bit and distract me. But any of the distractions, that's what I'll do, is I'll just mark it and then my brain can let it go. And that applies for typos as much as it applies for words that I don't understand. But yeah, that's a habit I think you should get into. I know for sure it happened in this book. It's just a matter of finding it. I actually think I showed you guys that at the end of one of the chapters in the J.D. Salinger book. Let's see. It should be in there. And the other thing that's really cool about these notes and stuff is they add shape to text. So I don't know how your guys' brain works, but for mine, I remember things in terms of the shape of text. So like if I knew the note was on this part of the page here, and It, and then there was another highlight at the bottom of the page. I could vaguely remember the shape of those sorts of things and then go back and try and quickly find a passage in the book based on the shape of the annotations, which is another reason to annotate the text that you're reading, because it can help that way. I'm trying to find this thing. It should be at the end of a chapter, but I'm not going to find it. I found it when I was trying to show you guys examples, but no such luck. I keep hurrying through it and I'm not seeing anything. Oh, maybe that. No. Okay, I can't find it. Oh well. Past a certain amount, I can't take a book too seriously if it's riddled with typos and grammar errors. I very rarely come across a book that's too bad. I think Dune is probably the worst. Like beyond like client copy that I've gotten for like ghostwriting work. In terms of published stuff, I think this is the worst. Beyond like something that was self-published on Amazon, I don't think I've read anything that has quite as many errors as Dune does. But again, I really think that might be down to the copy that I got. This was also in a foreign country. It's an English copy of like 3 volumes of Dune, all put into one. But I bought it while I was in Norway, so kind of brings about the question of how good the text in that book might have been. I did ask, just read that as correct. Interesting. And thank you for the 300 bits, worthless. You guys read commas or kind of take breaks where it semi-fits? It depends on the author. It depends on the author. I am a very submissive reader, generally. I'm very submissive. I want you to do everything, okay? I want you to guide the process. It's your job as an author. My brain is an instrument that is capable of reading the text that you're putting on the paper, and I will follow it with like some, flexibility, but I like being given something that can be followed exactly. And, I think that some people though, oh God, I could go on for hours about this. Okay. With just the books that I have in front of me, these 2 people, Viktor E. Frankl, okay? This guy is, he used to be a concentration camp person, like he was in the camp, one of the people that was locked up in there. And he was like a big, psychoanalytic, psychiatrist dude. And then we have this guy, old American dude, more of like an author's author. This is written very, very different from the other one. And I can add a lot more into J.D. Salinger in the way that I read it, because he speaks in such an exasperated way. And you could go ahead and you could read this boringly. You could just read it like straight. Or you could read it fun. And I think this is a book that you can read in a really fun way. Like, if you were to read it very boringly, I didn't even bother to get up. I just lay there on the floor for a while and kept calling him a moron, son of a bitch. I was so mad. I was practically bawling. Listen, go wash your face, Strad later said. You hear me? Like, and boring. How you need to read it is, I didn't even bother to get up. I just lay there on the floor for a while and kept calling him a moron, son of a bitch. I was so mad I was practically bawling. Listen, go wash your face. You hear me? Like, you have to read it with fun, because these characters are like, they're boyish characters that are trying to speak all masculine and hard and whatever, and he's fed up and so you have to read it in that way. And that made reading this book a lot of fun. It was very easy to get through, because once you read it like that, it's easy. But if you read this shit, like, if you just read it straight, it's super boring. Like if I read this passage straight, that's like him thinking, then I got up. I couldn't find my goddamn hunting hat anywhere. Finally, I found it. It was under the bed. I put it on and turned the old peak around to the back, the way I liked it. And then I went over and took a look at the stupid face in the mirror. You never saw such gore in your life. I had blood all like, it's not as fun. You have to read it in a fun way, you know? Need new underwear? No. Book Sharts is back to pooping his pants once again. What are you talking about, bro? Do you look up words when watching a YouTube video as well? Yeah, if I don't understand it, I will 100%. Another annoying one that happens, I feel like, more often in adult life is I'll hear a name that I don't know. And that's another one where, like, you should look it up. If somebody brings up a name and you're vaguely familiar with who it is, you need to look it up. Like, I'll give you an example. So recently, I've been watching a lot of Hitler stuff. I've been trying to learn more about the Nazis. Sorry, it's a bad place to pause. And I don't remember the names of all the people. Like, you know, when we're throwing around Goebbels and Himmler and this guy, they don't all fit, because in my mind, there is the Nazis, right? And so if a name is used in context, I'll understand it. Like, damn, bro, you out there fucking, you know, you got the hose wrapped around your fingers like you're Goebbels. Like, oh, okay, well then that's probably like propaganda minister, a guy, right? Like, but without the context clues, like if we're in a sentence where we're talking about 4 different people in the Nazi organization, I don't know all the names and stuff. So, you know, watching these documentaries, I'm pausing a lot and Googling and like triple checking who people are and what they did. And so, yeah, I think names are another one where if you don't know it, then you should look it up. I think Steven has a whole thing where he talks about places. That's another one. I'd say another very important, very underlooked dimension is time. I won't show you because I don't want to look like a crazy person or people to see how fascinated with the Nazis I've become as of recent. But like I have a timeline in a brainstorming document where I'll start listing, you know, different events that are happening during these this 10 or 15 year period, you know, like I think end of World War I all the way until the end of World War II, where I'm just like, oh, okay, because each documentary is giving me a different dimension. Like one is a 3-part series on the economics. So, oh, okay, this economic event happened in 41, it ended in 42, in 43 they did this. Okay. And then I'll watch one that's about Werner von Braun, the rocket scientist. And like, okay, so Werner was brought on here, and then he had his program closed here, and then he was brought on again here, and then he fled with the other scientists here, and the Americans brought him back here, and this is when this program started. So like, then you layer all those, my economic understanding, this story I heard about this guy, this 3-part series about, you know, Hitler's biography, and you lay over all those pieces, and then you have them all in a timeline where you could see where things are happening, and it helps you to understand why particular things in history have happened. I first did this when I was in US history in high school. That's where I was first turned on to the idea that you should be making a timeline and you need to constantly be looking at historical events in the context of what's going on at the time, because it's very easy to fuck up if you lose it. And it's very easy to have other people bullshit you about something when you don't have those key details, right? Because if somebody is telling me about, oh, you know, let's say that in XYZ year, the United States put forward a policy that was supposed to have this great economic benefit, and you know what? It failed. Well, the year matters, because if it failed when the Great Depression happened, there could be other forces at play that dictated the failure of that policy that are like extraneous, and you can't necessarily extrapolate that out to today to say anything about why that thing failed in the past. And honestly, even in the context of the past, it happened at the same time as this thing. So, you know, if you have that timeline of when things are happening in history, you get bullshitted, I feel like, a little bit less. And if you're ever trying to do like a report on something, or you're trying to learn about something, make a timeline for it. Like when I had to write about like ADHD and stuff, I put out a big timeline. What is the like, like it's coined here, but prior to it being coined, there has to be discussion about what are the things that are leading us to that. So, you extend in both directions out, and you track how things are changing over time, and then you try to look for trends there and fit it with what you're learning. Book Shards left YouTube because he pooped his diaper too many times. Can we just ban this random person? It's kind of getting annoying at this point. There, you're blocked on YouTube because you have the poop thing. Maybe audiobooks also work better for me since I read really boring. I also, I would advise reading in a more fun way, or reading in a way that the author would. You know who else this applies to? It applies to Stephen King, I would say. Him, you can have fun reading in different ways. Camus. Camus writes in a really funky way that you could read a bunch of different ways if you wanted to and get different meanings out of it, I feel like. Speeches and stuff. Holy shit. Have you guys ever read speeches? Oh my gosh. They look so good on paper. Or even MLK's letter from jail. I remember I did one on, because I saw, I think it was a Vsauce video where he talked about an unreleased speech by, I think it was maybe, no, it had to be JFK, right? Because 69. It was supposed to be a speech at the moon landing failed. And because you had never heard anybody read it, you're kind of open to read it however you would like. Let me see if I can share this with you guys real quick. Okay, cool. That should be okay if I put this here, right? Is that good? Oh my. I think this one should be fine. But the problem is my screen is a really long. I don't know. This looks so awful. I don't know. You can read it however you'd like to. So it's in the event of moon disaster, fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace. This one line, there's no commas in there. So you can read it any way that you want to. It's a fun way to practice reading. So fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace. You could go that way, or you could go way slower and it has a whole different feel. Fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace. These brave men, Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin, know that there is no hope for their recovery. But they also know that there is hope for mankind in their sacrifice. These two men are laying down their lives in mankind's most noble goal. You could put the emphasis wherever you want. You can have fun with it. That's a fun thing about speeches. I remember Obama had a really, really handsome speechwriter. So I remember reading some of Obama's early speeches. That was kind of cool. But yeah, speeches are another fun one because they're very, very dramatic and very powerful. You could read them however you'd like. Did Hitler invent the microphone? No idea, bro. So you can also make it boring. Yeah, you certainly could. Yeah, there's that. Okay, guys, I'm getting tired, and it's getting to be about the time to go and watch our Christmas movie. So with that said, I will let you all go. It's been cool chatting with you briefly. I'll try to come up with some stream ideas and stuff that we could do and fit it in with work, but it's very, very difficult. But I'll try. And yeah, if there's anything in particular you guys want to see, let me know in the stream discussion. But happy holidays and Merry Christmas. And I hope you've all had a wonderful time.
I'm actually getting real tired. I don't know if we're going to watch a movie. I kind of just want to go to bed. I might just redact that Discord message and take out. You know what? It's technically against terms of service. That's a good excuse. I can't do it, guys. I have been informed that what we had planned is against the terms of service. As I casually edit this Discord shout out to reflect that. Like it never happened. Okay, guys. You can't blame me, okay, dude? I get tired. I barely talk at all day anymore. And here I had to talk on and on and on for how long? An hour and 20 minutes? Goodness gracious. Certainly can't keep up those 8-hour streams like I used to. Hey, focus up, bud. I'm over here. Oh, wait. Doesn't even matter. See you guys later. I'll talk to you again soon.